Sure.
So, hi everybody, it's Richard from the Homeschool Freedom Club. And as you know, I've said I'm going to be doing a series of interviews with people who are homeschooling and to find out a little bit more about how they're doing it and how they're supporting themselves. And with me today, I've got Rebecca, and she is joining me all the way from Denmark. So, welcome, Rebecca, and thanks ever so much for agreeing to come here and talk to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me and for creating this initiative. I think it's so beautiful and it's so essential because we just talked a little bit before. I always feel when I feel a big need or a big desire to create something more, something bigger for myself, often it feels so far out and so far away that I even have the challenge to imagine it. And then having people, like seeing people and being connected to people who actually are living this, maybe living something that is even more crazy and bigger and expansive than I ever could have imagined. It feels like, to start with, it feels like a stretching for my mind. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, is that even possible? And I had never even thought about this. And then slowly and slowly and slowly, I feel like, okay, if it's possible for them, it must be possible for me too. I mean, they don't have any magic powers that I don't have, or any magic access to any magic, whatever energies that are not available to you and me. So
Yeah.
we must be able to do it too, right?
I completely agree with you. I mean, we were chatting before, like you said, and once you start on the home education journey, you can't go back. It's just impossible to go back, and it opens so many doors to you, doesn't it? I think it opens so many possibilities, and
Mhm.
one of those is obviously the possibility to world school. I mean, we took our children off to Mexico for 3 months last year, which is something I would never have dreamed about in the past. It's just it would have been way out there, and just seeing that other people can do it, and as you say, it's, well, why not me? Why
Mhm.
can't I do this? So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, sort of where you are, and how many children do you have? What's your sort of situation at home?
Absolutely. So my kids are 8 and 9 years old, and when they were born, I had no idea about, um, or I guess I had heard about homeschooling, that some people somewhere on this planet do this thing, but I it was not legal in the country we were living at that time. That was in Sweden. So it didn't even cross my mind as a possibility for me. However, my own mom had stayed at home with us for quite a long time, longer than most people. So I already knew from the beginning that was something I also wanted.
Mhm.
And then at that time, I was living with a lot of violence in my life. And, the real realization how much violence was in my life came only much later. But there was a point where I realized, okay, what are the values that I want to pass on to my children? And I've was like really clear about them. And then I got a shock when I realized that what I was living for them, like
Hi everyone. So we had a little bit of a glitch with the internet there. So Rebecca's just going to continue on. So you were just talking about how you have violence in your life, and you hadn't really realised how much at the time, really, or until afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, so um, I at that time I thought that violence was I was completely focused on physical violence, and I hadn't realized how many other forms of violence there was existing in general and in my life. But I noticed that um, I had these values that I wanted to pass on to my children, and that the way I was living my life and what I was modeling for them was something completely different. And I just felt like, that doesn't really work because, I mean, even though I believe that words do matter a lot, I think all of us can, we have these phrases that we heard when we were kids,
Yeah.
um, that really stuck to us a lot.
Yes.
Um, but actions matter a lot too, like the way we are living. So if we are just, if we're talking about, oh, it's so important that you allow yourself, or that you kind of claim to be respected, that you stand up for yourself, that you know your own worthiness and blah blah blah, live your own passion, all these things, but you live something completely else. I think the way you live is having then a way bigger impact onto your children than what you're saying, if it's not congruent.
Yeah.
So I just felt um like this is not what I wanted. This is I just couldn't continue on that path. And then, yeah, a lot happened in my life. I decided to leave my relationship, and it was a long and bumpy road. And then I came, like somehow I started reading or I read a post about school and what school does to us and whatever. And I started, it was the first time ever I started thinking about this. And then um, the more I looked into it, the more, the puzzle came together, and I felt like, oh my goodness, like that's not what I want for my kids neither. And then I started going into that, and then um, then it felt so strong. It felt like this one-way road. It's not that I would forbid my kids to go to school, but I want them to have the freedom, and the freedom is being of choice, right? And
Yeah.
I want my kids, um,
Okay, right. Apologies for that. We're back again. So yeah, so you were just talking about the importance of choice as well. I mean, I completely agree with you on that front. And again, it's one of the reasons I run the group is because a lot of parents don't even have the choice to take their kids out of school because they don't know how to create an income,
mhm,
from home. And with the cost of living increases and everything else, 30, 40 years ago, you could live on one salary quite comfortably. And now, both parents are working, and the idea of home educating and then one income suddenly disappearing, and for a lot of people it's just too much. And it was another one of the things I wanted to explore in these calls was, how are people making an income, and how are you supporting yourself on this journey? And I'd love to talk to you a bit about that as well.
absolutely. And I feel it is such an important conversation to have. I feel a lot of people, depending on where you're coming from, I think some families come, of course, everybody comes from a different background, but some families come from like a more alternative, what even is alternative, but I'll just call it alternative background. And there's often this very negative, um, many negative beliefs connected to money, and more kind of that desire to preferably live completely without money, and feeling this big conflict, that on the one hand they have this desire to kind of ignore money and that money topic because it is like so negative and bad, blah blah blah. But on the other hand, the realization, okay, we are spiritual beings, but we are having a human experience.
Yeah.
And that human experience in today's world means that we want a roof over our head and we want to feed our kids. And most of us don't live in this lush garden where where everything grows just, and we just, need to pick things, or can pick things from the tree. And, like, even if, I mean, I wouldn't be able to pay for this not so good functioning today internet connection at the computer I'm using right now to talk to you, even if I had an abundant harvest of potatoes in my garden, right?
Yeah.
So we I mean, we just really need money. And I had this block for me for a long, long time, this kind of trying to ignore the money topic.
Yeah.
And I think you and I, we're maybe on a little bit of a similar journey, to actually really open up for money and realizing that, wow, maybe, I mean, first of all, money is totally like invented. It's not real. I mean, it's somebody just came up with that idea. And actually, I actually like that, like to have money because it is very convenient. Because if if we were dependent on only swapping potatoes with bananas,
Yeah.
if the only thing you accept as payment is bananas, but I'm in Denmark right now and there's not many bananas growing here, plus you're on a different continent, how am I even get the bananas to you that I don't even have,
Yeah.
That's like, it doesn't really work. So I feel money is actually really convenient as a means of exchange. I mean, I totally agree that there's a lot of crap happening in there,
Yeah.
with connected to money too. But I feel a lot of the blocks that we have
Hmm.
actually is like something so much deeper and has to do with our connection to source and the way that we are able to allow life energy to flow through you, because money is just, like I said, it's just something invented. But what the money brings to us, can be so much goodness,
Yeah.
because I feel what we are, um like, money is an amplifier for what we want to bring forth into the world.
Yeah.
So
That's such a good point. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's like terrible people out there, and when they have money, they do terrible things.
Yeah.
But therefore, we need more good people to have plenty of money available so we can do plenty of good stuff.
Yeah.
Because, I think a lot of people in our community who have big visions, big dreams, may that be traveling with our families, maybe creating, buying a piece of land, um, building an eco village, or I don't know, donating money, doing whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it all demands money.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, like, healing that relationship to money, I wouldn't say I'm there yet, not at all. But it has become a big topic for me, and I feel it's so important, and it's way beyond, it is connected to so many other areas in life. So yeah.
No, I mean you're absolutely right. I mean, money it's just an energy, and nobody
Exactly.
exchange money for information or money for goods. It's just an exchange
Hmm.
of energy at the end of the day. And there's so much. I mean, you were talking about the stories from when we're children, but there's so much programming. So many subconscious programs running in us and subconscious stories running in us. I was chatting about this with Sarah Beale on the last interview that I did, and and they're all there in the background. And
Hmm.
but you're absolutely right. You can't do, yes, all right, we would all love to live off grid, or a lot of people would love to live off grid.
Exactly.
What are you going to buy the land with? You need to buy seeds, or you need to buy equipment to farm it with. You need,
Exactly.
we can't live in a world at the moment as we are without
Exactly.
money.
And
It's just a fact of life.
And I mean, part of our world schooling, um, adventure has taken us to places where people live totally off grid,
Yeah,
and, in tropical countries.
yeah,
And I'm telling you, their lack of money, when they also carry these scarcity stories with them,
yeah,
it's no fun. I mean, um, it's really not this lush, abundant life, even though they have bananas growing in their garden, because they too want to pay for electricity. They too, maybe then they just have bananas and they don't want to eat bananas from morning to evening. Um, and they too maybe want to build that off-grid house with some materials that doesn't exist on their property, or they want to install a solar panel or something.
yeah,
And it's I just feel when we live in this with this scarcity, in the scarcity setting, it's not this, like, I can really feel how life energy is stuck and how it affects other areas of life. So Like I feel in order to create thriving life, we need
Uh-huh.
to figure that money story out. At least that's how it feels for
Well,
me.
that's the point, isn't it? We were talking about choice earlier, but so many choices are contingent upon having money in the bank to make
Mhm.
those choices.
Mhm.
If you want to make the choice to go world schooling, you have to fund it. You've got to pay for the flights, you've got to pay for accommodation, you've got to pay for food, even in day-to-day life,
Exactly.
wherever you are. If
Exactly.
even if you just want to homeschool, you're gonna be living somewhere, you're gonna be
Uh-huh.
eating, you're gonna be, taking the kids out on trips or whatever. So it doesn't matter what scenario you look at, money's there. It's a part of it, but it's all these expressions, money is the root of all evil and things like that. They're all just there to really, that's all just to hold us back,
Yeah,
because the
exactly.
full expression is the love of money is the root of all evil, and
Mm-hmm.
it's quoted all the time, and we're shown all these examples of these wealthy people who are not nice human beings for a lot of, for the most part. But then there's also some incredible wealthy people out there who do an awful lot of good, but you just don't hear about them because they're not in the news. They don't, I mean, George Michael was one that springs to mind after he died, and all these stories came out about the money that he was giving away to people and what charities he was supporting, and and he just didn't want people to know about it whilst he was alive. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes you wonder how many more of those are out there. And it's
Totally.
so there's always a balance in life, isn't there? There's the good and the bad, and it's there's
Totally.
always the
Yeah,
counterbalance to the evil stuff out there. So
absolutely.
how do you make an income?
Yeah, so I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of single moms out there who also feel like that feels kind of impossible. But it is possible. And I think my first um the first solution I found was, first of all, I then lived in countries where I got child benefit. So
Hmm.
got child benefit, and I just saved as much money as I could.
Yeah.
Um, but I just realized at some point that that was a very tight spot to live from. And it's like I was like suffocating because, you know, I mean, there's a million ways to save money, but when you already, eventually I felt like I was trying to squeeze out that last drop out of the lemon. And, how can I maybe turn this scent one more time and squeeze out another tiny bit of value out of this? And that's not the life. I mean, of course, I want to pass on to my children too, to be creative and to make things work even without money and
Yeah.
find other kinds of solutions. But, to be in the spot constantly didn't feel good. So what I've been, yeah, really putting a lot of focus onto this topic in my life in the past years. And one of the things was or still is, healing my relationship to money,
Yeah.
then creating multiple streams of income. I feel that is just so important. Um, and also remembering that I am the best source to bring forth the money. Because when I focus too much on passive income,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so much you can invest in and so on. It's always like I'm constantly just waiting for that other thing or other people, other companies, whatever,
Yeah.
to do it. And it feels so stressful because
It's
I
disempowered.
cannot,
I think it's quite
yeah,
disempowering, just putting your money into a third
exactly.
party and hoping for the best. Because I used to talk a
Exactly.
lot about passive income systems in the group, but actually I'm moving away from those. And I completely agree with you. We need multiple sources of income. I
Yeah.
had my own business for 15 years, and I thought I was safe with that. Then COVID came along, and bang, it disappeared
Yeah.
overnight, and we had nothing because my
Totally.
wife had two young kids. She wasn't bringing income in, and so that was when I really started, sort of
Yeah.
or gain the realization that we need multiple sources of income. So
Yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah,
No, no, it's really great. And I mean, I love this idea, and it feels amazing as one of the streams of income that you have money, whatever, if you invest in crypto or some, I don't know, some kind of trading or some other investments where you just, you put your money there and it just grows by itself. I mean, that's like amazing, right? But it feels very stressful when you're totally relying on that, and maybe those markets, they are also like ebb and flow, and
Yeah,
when you really need it or when shit happens in there
yeah,
too, then and you're totally relying on that, like that doesn't isn't good neither.
yeah,
So I am really starting to build more and more and more different sources of income for myself. I mean, to start with, I feel, or not only to start with, but in between,
yeah,
or it can be super good boost to, for example, affiliate marketing. I
yeah,
mean, there's also these high ticket affiliate marketing, and I think a lot of homeschoolers are in that too.
yeah,
But there's also like there's, for example, one that is very prominent, I feel, in our
yeah,
environment, um and while I love so many people who are involved with that,
yeah,
the actual product and whatever, it doesn't really, yeah, I have some issues with that. Therefore, I've never felt called to join exactly that. But there's many other ways of affiliate marketing. Like I only love doing affiliate marketing when it's something that I really, really
yeah,
believe in and that I'm
yeah,
passionate about, that I would tell other people about anyways. And it can be like a good addition, and you don't need much for that. You just need, like, it's enough
yeah,
if you have a Facebook account or an Instagram account or a Telegram or whatever, and
yeah,
you tell people about it, and which you would maybe do anyways, and then just because you're telling them, you know, like you get an extra a slice of that,
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
really like a simple thing to do. Um, And yeah, for me, it has also then been really like allowing my business to grow. I started my business many years ago, but it's only recently that I really, really am pouring much more into it. And what has like I feel then I am totally in charge, and I mean, I'm not saying that it's all gold, but I am the one standing behind it. I feel it totally, resonates with my own values, and I can twist it. I can go with me. I can adjust it. That feels amazing to me. But I do believe, like for me, um, like I really the big turning point came when I started to invest into a coach, because otherwise I would just continue what I grew up with.
Yeah,
And I grew up with that you work, the more you want, the more you have to work, you
yeah.
know.
And it's not true. It's
And
the biggest
that's not
lies out there.
exactly. And that's also not what I want to live for myself. And that's also not what I want to model for my kids.
Yeah,
So, again, there, I like when there's something like that that I want to call into my life, I really try to bring those people into my life who inspire me and who show me that there is another way and what that way could possibly look like.
yeah,
My website is called It Takes a Village, and I believe that village is needed for so many other things, amongst others, inspiration. And like, I also grew up with that mindset, like, oh, it's best to figure it out yourself. And um, at school, it's like kind of it is often punished to help each other, or it is
yeah,
like rewarded if you do everything by yourself. But
yeah,
that's not what I believe, and that's one of the reasons why I raised my children without school. So therefore, I also feel I also want to live that, and I want to model for my children. I don't need to have all the answers, and I like, for example, I had the other day a conversation with a millionaire, and she said, when people say um like, I'm a self-made millionaire, she says it's never true,
yeah.
because you need a really good support network
Hmm.
to become a millionaire. You need that village.
Yeah.
So um you need a solid foundation to be able to bring wealth into your life, and to make it sustainable, and in many different ways. Like, let's say, as a parent, you maybe need somebody to support with the children, to support with a household, to, when you have your own business. I mean, you usually have tons of different parts of the business,
Yeah.
accounting and tech stuff and marketing or whatever. And if you're trying to do it all yourself, then, you're working like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I feel that is also a big part, to remember that you don't need to figure it out all by yourself,
Yeah.
and that having that village and creating that village and investing into it, of course, step by step, um, is just so essential.
So your business, who is it there specifically to help, and what does it do?
So, my in my business, I do all the things that are, or many things that are really dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about helping people who want to create a life with freedom and an alignment with their own values and their own visions.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of them are parents, but not exclusively.
Hmm.
Um, so I offer a lot of inspiration around topics that I believe um are essential on this path, where we maybe traditionally in our Western society have given away our authority,
Hmm.
that we actually bring that authority back to ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and Right. Yeah, I support a lot of families who are unschooling, who are, I always say, who are willing to, parents who are willing to, move mountains
Yeah.
and move countries
Uh-huh.
for the sake of their kids, and to raising their kids with more freedom. Unfortunately, there's a lot of families in this movement also who came there because they've been exposed to a lot of violence and exposed to a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
um, that can be at birth, or during early childcare years, or at school. School, of course, is big.
Yeah.
A lot of trauma is unfortunately caused there, and um, a lot of parents just don't know where to start and how that is even possible. And Um, while I really believe in the real life village around us, and I'm also often creating events around that, how can we create or find that real life village around us?
Yeah.
Um, it's not always possible nor smart, I believe, to, go and move from one day to the other end of the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes we first need to, like, for example, make sure that we have a source of income,
Yeah.
because it doesn't help if we know we have €1,000 on the banking account, and I'm going to move now from whatever, Europe to Panama. That I don't believe that's very smart. So maybe between now and moving to Panama,
Hmm.
thinking about, okay, what can I do? What is it that would be really smart and helpful? And is Panama even that perfect spot for me, and so on?
Yeah.
And I'm coming in there in between to support parents with all the questions that come up, like, where can I move to? How can I make this possible? And what even is like wrong with me? I mean, I'm often working with women and moms, and one of the big topics is feeling lonely, feeling that we don't belong,
Yeah.
feeling that we're not worthy, um, and having lost the trust to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I feel it's a big thing that many of us have experienced from childhood, that we've been told, like, oh, don't cry, this doesn't hurt, or this is not so bad.
Uh-huh.
um or yeah, all these things where we have been told, like, okay, I see you're crying, but you're just making this up. So, and that has, like, we've heard that so many times, that it has led to us not trusting ourselves and um, doubting ourselves, and believing that the authority is, the authority is outside of us, and the authority knows better, the authority is right.
Yeah,
And through that, um, we are kind of, even though we are conscious about it, we can so easily recreate that pattern.
yeah,
Um, I just talked to a mom, and or I actually often talk to moms who are in this dilemma, that they feel they are putting their kids into school or to daycare, and they feel, deep down, they feel this is not right. Their inner compass says, like, this is not good, and it doesn't feel right to leave my kid crying every day, or it doesn't feel good that my child is coming back from school super overwhelmed and crazy and hating that time there and being punished at school, whatever. It doesn't feel right. But the pressure from society is so big.
yeah,
Um, and then as parent, you actually turn into a like the arm of the authorities. So you are actually then doing the same thing again. You say, maybe, yeah, I know this is really terrible for you, and I can see you don't like going there, and I understand
yeah,
it's so painful for you to go there and to be without me, or to be with those people, or you're overwhelmed being with all these 30 other students every day. But you have to go there. And
yeah,
then that means that I, as a parent, actually am perpetuating what the system is doing, and what I actually hate, and what I don't like, and what I don't want. But for my child, I'm actually turning into the the executive power of the system.
yeah,
And I mean, that is like so weird. I don't know why I'm saying this now, but um, you asked me what I'm working with. So
yeah,
I'm supporting a lot of parents um, to try, because they feel like this doesn't feel right. It feels
yeah,
in every single cell of their bodies, but then they don't know, and everybody around them is just doing this thing, right? They are
yeah,
putting their kids
absolutely,
to
yeah,
school, or they are doing things that um yeah, and then it's hard, like I said before, then this mind stretching comes in, that our environment is just so powerful. And when we are, they say we become the average of the 5 people around us.
uh-huh,
Like,
yeah,
when we only have people around us who are doing this thing, putting their kids into institutions against their will, against the will of the kids, or where the kids are not well, then we feel like we feel so much pressure, and we also don't feel we don't have the solutions
but
what to do.
there's like a disconnect, isn't there,
Uh-huh.
between what you want and what's happening and what you feel inside. You feel inside that it's
Exactly.
wrong, but you
Exactly.
just don't. And a lot of people aren't even aware that, I think that homeschooling is an option. Home education is an option, and
Exactly.
it's really strange. I mean, yeah, we to be honest, we were almost in a similar situation, because our little boy, he went to school for 2 terms, and then COVID happened, and COVID was probably the best thing that could have happened to us as
Hmm.
a family.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
it was really, I know for a lot of people it was a difficult time, but for us it was quite a wonderful
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And and it gave us a chance to see things with completely new eyes.
Hmm.
And then when we saw, the school was sending stuff home for him to do, and we were like, "He's 4. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
What are we doing?"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so we just sort of carried on. But you're right, there is kind of a massive disconnect between what people are feeling inside and what they're actually doing, and
Hmm.
that just doesn't lead to a happy life. But I've only got about 5 minutes left, but I just
Sure.
one question I wanted to ask you was, you've got two young children, they're 8 and 9, you said. Um, how a lot of people also, when they're thinking about home educating, are thinking, okay, I want to earn money. How am I going to even have the time to do this with young children at home that I'm
Mhm.
educating? Can you give us just some quick insights into how you go about it?
Absolutely. Um, so I um I have two things that are my go-to options to create solutions for this. And I want to say that shifts for my family, that shifts for all families, the needs shift, and all families are also different, but for us, this is what works.
Yeah.
First of all, finding a what I call a nourishing neighborhood, which is not a community in the sense of eco village. I feel for me, and also I know for a lot of other families, that can be a bit, it can feel overwhelming, can be too
Mhm.
much of commitment and whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but finding a place with a lot of where a lot of like-minded, like-hearted families live close around, or also other people. I really love involving people of all different ages.
Yeah.
Um, where they just have the spirit of togetherness. We want to help each other, whatever. Like we have found a beautiful spot for us, a little village
Mhm.
where there's, I don't know, maybe let's say 10 families in the village who are also unschoolers,
Yeah.
and it's all walking distance, so the kids, or short cycling distance, so the kids can just move around by themselves. And I just,
Mhm.
for me, that is just like, that's such a big part of freedom, that the kids, I feel safe and the kids feel safe to go out and do their own thing. Like I actually love calling it life learning rather than unschooling.
Yeah.
And I feel life is happening like when the kids can really move around freely. And in opposition to, I know a lot of families are doing what I call activity hopping,
Yeah.
um where I totally understand, and for some families this works really well. For me, that's in my position right now, in our situation right now, it's not optimal, but I love when it works more organically, and when the kids are, they have the possibility to roam freely. So that's the first thing. And also for me to have I really want to emphasize that we as mothers or as parents, we are just so important also, that we can fill our own tank.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel we get too child focused, and we forget that we too need community. We too need spaces where we can feel safe, where we are held, and all of this. So that in real life community of some sorts, I call it a nourishing neighborhood. And second of all, calling in volunteers to our home. So we have had a lot of workaways, like we've used the platform Workaway for most of them.
Okay.
I'll actually teach a little workshop around that in a few weeks. Um, if anybody is interested, um call in volunteers to, that feels a little bit like passive traveling or passive world schooling, because we're not always in this situation, or don't always have even the longing for traveling. Sometimes we also feel like, oh, it's actually nice to be in one spot for a longer
Yeah.
time. um, but it's still super enriching to have people coming in from the outside, like a fresh breath of air.
Yeah.
Um, and that is just like creating this instant village, even though, I mean, we've sometimes, I think we've had no, three volunteers at the time, but mostly it's been one.
Yeah.
But it's just, you can call somebody and you can be very precise what kind of support you want in your home. I mean, you need some kind of a little corner, or preferably a little room for them. But other than that, I mean, for us, it doesn't cost super much extra to pay for food for an extra person. I know some people also host without providing food. They just provide accommodation. That's also fine. There's different kinds of
Okay.
agreements. But that has really also helped a lot, especially when the kids were younger. And in that way, I could stay at home, and my kids were also at home, but
Mhm.
together with another person who was mainly taking care of them. Um, and it also, like, they create a connection much quicker than if you call in, let's say, a babysitter from, I don't know, the next village,
Yeah.
because that babysitter will come per hour.
Yeah.
whereas your workaway is actually living under the same roof. So you are just by having breakfast together, they are already creating a connection, even though that
Mm.
person is not working,
Yeah.
but they are connected. And for the volunteers, it's also super beautiful. It's really, really win-win in my opinion.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, unfortunately, I've run out of time
Yeah, sure.
at this end, but I'm just thank you for those. That's some really great tips there. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Rebecca. Thank you so, so much for coming
Yeah, the
and
same.
chatting today. And well, hopefully, we can pick this up again at some point as well, because just a really
Absolutely.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about so many different topics. So, yeah, and if anybody who's watching this, if you have any questions, now I've been talking about so many different things. If you have more questions, reach out, and it's so nice. I think it's so important that we connect and that we create this beautiful, enriching, nourishing, inspiring web, where we really, I mean, we are all creating something new, and it's new for all of us. I
Yeah,
mean, I know maybe 0.1% of the people I know have been grown up homeschooling or being homeschooled themselves, let alone being unschooled. So we are all creating something so new.
yeah,
And so it's so important that we connect.
that's wonderful. Thank you ever so much. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.